name is Dan Bowers. I am the Director of Cloud Solutions here at CMS Communications. For those of you that don't know, CMS Communications is a nationwide provider and technology advisor. And we began back in '85 as a hardware provider, telecom equipment and IT hardware. Through the years, we've been on-premise installers of many different phone systems and an agnostic perspective. As well, we also kind of forayed into the cloud world as UCaaS and CCaaS came about and collaboration tools like Teams came about. And so who we are is an agnostic advisory firm that works with you on the discovery, your infrastructure, your scope of work, to better understand what's going to be the best fit for you. Now, for us, and doing this for over 10 years, we have found there has been always one name and one provider that we've been able to work with very easily and is very technical and understands our clients' needs, and that is BCM One. BCM One is here today going to present about how we can voice enable teams in the many different ways and for your disparate systems and environments that you have. And we're here today to just discuss this and let you guys know and work with you to let you guys know the different options you may have. And after this, we're going to follow up just to let you know with a recording of this webinar. And we're also going to try to, help you guys move into a new voice-enabled Teams environment. So with that, I think the next slide will be our agenda for today, which I'm going to go over. Can we get that slide up? All right, here we go. So we're going to go over the hosts for today, which are Mike Watts from BCM One and Mike Hawkins. And Mike Watts is my channel manager, and then Mike Hawkins is the engineer for Teams here, and they're going to give their own introductions as well. But we're also going to talk about who BCM One is, how Teams can play in the workplace for you guys, how we can empower you with using Teams Premium and also Copilot, and then best practices for migration to Teams and how to get started. Afterwards, we'll have a little session for a Q&A for you guys. And then, of course, I'm going to follow up afterwards to see how we can help you guys in the future. So with that being said, I'll stop talking and I will introduce Mike Watts from BCM One.
Thanks, Dan. Appreciate it. Yes, I am one of your hosts today. Nice to meet you all. My name is Mike Watts. I'm a national channel manager here to support Dan and you as clients. And Michael Hawkins is going to be our main speaker today. He's our Director of Solutions Engineering. And of course, you guys just met Dan, or you already know Dan. Next slide, please, Mr. Hawkins. So just want to give you a little bit of background of who BCM One is to begin, and then we'll get into to the main part of the discussion today over Teams. BCM One, we are a leader, and you're a leader provider of modern communications, next-gen communication services on the voice side, as well as network managed services. And we have a full suite of different services and solutions that we offer. But today, of course, we're going to be diving into how to turn on phones for Microsoft Teams and the different kinds of ways that we can do that and help you. You can see from here on the slide, company snapshot, just, we have a lot of different clients out there, more sizes from smaller SMB size to enterprise clients for all different types of verticals. The primary verticals you see here, we have 10 different offices located across the world with 9 network operations centers, and we serve 137 countries actually globally today. Which is a really neat story. One of the main things I want you to understand is that we're very client-centric and very support-centric in that way that we want to give you top-notch customer service. And you can see here our Net Promoter Score 89.1 is one of the top in the industry for our services that we provide. Can you go to the next slide, Mr. Hawkins? So as I mentioned before, next-gen communications, there's multiple different platforms of things that we offer, some services. You see SIP trunking here, enterprise voice, which we're going to talk about today, Microsoft Teams, Cisco WebEx, powering Zoom, anything in the cloud connected UCaaS space as well. And then, of course, on the network side of things, we do offer, and we are a global connectivity aggregator, as we do supply internet connectivity and manage that globally and 365, 7 days a week, 24/7 support. and even managed SD-WAN and some other things as well. I wanted to make sure that you understand that we try to make it easier for our clients to come to one place and one provider to provide multiple different services and get that all on one bill, make it much easier for you guys. Today we're going to be focusing on Teams and getting to the next slide, Mr. Hawkins, please. We'll talk about pure IP. You'll see that come up here during the call, and I wanted to make sure that I talked about what the difference between pure IP and BCM One. Pure IP is just the service, another a corporation that we acquired at the beginning or middle of last year in 2023. And with our combined experience now, Pure IP and BCM One have been around for 30 years and providing these enterprise type solutions in the market. Pure IP has brought us into 50 countries where we can fully replace the PSTN services into Teams and into things like Cisco WebEx as well. And also, and that's fully replacing the PSTN, but we also can provide services into 137 different countries as well. Pure IP is the original Operator Connect partner of Microsoft and currently a certified Microsoft managed and fast track partner for Teams calling. So been around for a long time, been doing this for quite some time, and we really specialize in our ability to help with transition services, and you'll see that in a few minutes as Michael Hawkins takes over in a few to talk about that. But we invoice in 7 different countries, and we have NOCs all over. You can go to the next slide, Michael, that's fine. Across the globe as well, and with 12 global pops of presence here that you see from the slide. So our network operations centers are located in San Francisco, London, and Auckland in a follow the sun type model, 24/7, 365. Hawkins, I think I'll hand it over here and let you kind of just dive in here and then start your sections. Is that okay?
Yeah, that sounds great. Can you hear me?
I can.
We sure can.
Awesome. Well, thanks everyone. I appreciate it. And as you can tell, we picked some of the cheapest places to have real estate across the entire globe, but also where we can find the best voice engineering talent too. To just kind of piggyback off of what Mike was saying there, here's a quick list of the 50 countries that we've got full PSTN replacement for, and then we'll dive into some of our SBC services as a managed service for some of those harder to reach countries. But let's go into why we're here. And that's talking about Teams, how to enable it with PSTN, the journey to get you from your dreams to reality, and understanding what Teams can do for you beyond just making a phone call. So before we jump into the meat and potatoes of this, let's break down the Microsoft Teams phone system into its different components. And I'll kind of spell out where Pure IP/BCM One plays a large role in this. At the very top, you'll see the Teams phone system, and that's just like any other bare metal PBX phone system that's out there. That could be sitting in a closet, it could be in the cloud, it could be in a data center, and that's where your users are going to reside, how you're going to set up your call routing, and essentially the functionality, how the phone system works. Once you've got that piece, again, just like a bare metal phone system, you still have to connect you to the rest of the world. You have to go to a bridge off of its island. And Microsoft enables this in multiple different ways. They've got an Operator Connect offering, which we participate in, one of the original Operator Connect partners. They've had a tried and true direct routing foundation, and they've also got Teams Mobile. Microsoft does have one additional way to connect, and that's through their own non-third party calling plans, but those can be a little difficult to administer and don't typically scale very well into the mid and enterprise size customers. The second to last piece is at the bottom, and that's how we want to interact with Microsoft Teams. So that could be within our Microsoft Teams phone rooms, with a physical device that's sitting on our desk, with the soft phone, with the cell phone that's in our pocket, on, or even through the web. The options to interface with Teams are vast. Over on the right-hand side, you'll see a different section than you see from most providers when you're looking at phone systems. And I think this is a little bit of what makes Microsoft's offering Special, unique, different. They've got a really well-established ecosystem of independent software vendors, system integrators, operators like ourselves, and original equipment manufacturers who have all agreed to participate and play by the rules of the Microsoft ecosystem. That enables you to do things that are more point specific. And we'll get into some of those integrations and where you could find some value in them within teams. As you're looking at all of the different options that are out there across unified communications, people often look to Gartner as a watermark to understand who's in that leader quadrant or who's truly being innovators within the industry. Microsoft for 5 years now has been part of the Magic Quadrant, or that upper right-hand quadrant, with I would say good company. We've got Zoom, Cisco, Ring Central, and Microsoft, and then 8x8 in there, each with their own unique strengths and customer profiles that they're targeting. So why do we have the right to talk to you about this? So we've been doing it for a while. Like I mentioned, and I think Mike mentioned too, we were an original Microsoft Operator Connect partner. That gives us a little bit of credibility because we were part of that Operator Enterprise program and Technology Advisory program and helping Microsoft create the Operator Connect environment and the rules in which we connect to it. We've been supporting mid-size and enterprise organizations for over 13 years on this and have many different specializations, but one of the ones being the most pertinent to today's conversation is a specialist for calling for Microsoft Teams. That allows us to get access to a whole bunch of different resources to help you in your journey getting from point A to point B, or eventually landing on that Microsoft Teams unified communication system. And just from a track record perspective, we've got over 500,000, almost 250,000 or 750,000 Teams phone seats enabled, with organizations that are collectively employing 2.2 million employees, trusted by some of the biggest name brands that you would recognize out there. And we're consistently adding around 12 clients to our Microsoft Teams calling per month as well. So now that we kind of understand a little bit about the phone system itself, who we are and why we're talking about this, let's dive into the different parts and pieces that we'll use to enable Teams to get connected to Microsoft PSTN, as well as additional functionality. So let's start at the very top, which come down to your connectivity options or deployment options. The most popular by far right now is Operator Connect. And that's due to the fact that the administrative overhead in day-to-day use or support for Microsoft Teams is greatly reduced via Operator Connect. Everything lives within your Teams admin center, so you're truly looking at one pane of glass to administer your world. Now, over on the right-hand side, we've also got the option to connect via direct routing. Now, direct routing is more customizable, but can also be a little bit more of a difficult install or maintenance. There are specific scenarios where we'll want to use direct routing, or even a combination of direct routing and Operator Connect for you. Don't worry, you don't have to figure out which ones are those unique scenarios or the caveats as to which one works best for XYZ scenario. We'll help you along that journey, but know that we've got both options available, so that really does expand our ability to design the correct solution that best fits your needs. When we look at our core, the core of Pure IP is nothing more than a connectivity or a whole bunch of SBCs playing traffic cops saying go left or go right. We take a very agnostic approach to this. So in a similar vein to CMS, while we're talking about Teams today, the same methodology applies for WebEx, for Zoom, or even for on-prem connectivity. The second piece that we'll help with is the enablement services. So I talk with clients a lot and they know where they want to go. They want to end up on Teams. They're even pretty sure they want to go with us. But then the reality really sinks in. How many administrators do I have who are comfortable with designing and setting this up for the original configuration? And how many people do I have who I'm going to be able to apply in a support fashion as an ongoing management and maintenance of the system? what we can do is, and I'll dive into this a little bit, it's part of our signature discovery, design, deploy methodology that we enable you to use a lot of automation and tools to help aid in that journey and get you from that point A to point B. We'll go over those a little bit more here in just a second. The extensibility services is a special category that we've created for things that don't fit nicely into the team's environment in a native fashion. Now, I will say throughout our experience and throughout our time and our journey with Microsoft ourselves, we've seen them open up their ecosystem to a lot more vendors, and the ability to reuse hardware has become much more likely or probable for most customers. In the event, though, that you have something like a antiquated paging system, a door strike for security access, and those don't fit nicely into the Microsoft Teams system, we have a way to connect to those and still enable to use those assets that you've already purchased and may even be fully depreciated in a way with your new unified communication system. And then lastly, we'll talk a little bit about application integration, how we can extend the Microsoft Teams phone system beyond Teams itself. So rather that's attendant consoles for someone sitting in the front of the house, directing all phone calls in a drag and drop fashion, or connecting to some of the most popular contact or call centers that are out there and unifying dialing plans across both Teams and those contact centers to maintain on-net calling or no charge calling between them. Those are some of the things that we can help round out that ecosystem with through the application integration. Okay, so I'm not going to spend a ton of time on direct routing because it is a little bit older and we see it used less and less. That said, if you're looking to connect to the pure Microsoft Teams or PSTN network outside of one of the 50 countries where we offer full PSTN replacement, we would use a direct routing solution. And essentially all it is on one side of the equation, you've got the PSTN trunking that we're supplying. We've got a physical piece of equipment that we'll set at the customer's prem, and then we've got the connection to the Microsoft Teams phone system. Now, we'll go into some of our SBC as a service and some of the managed services around those to connect to the harder countries. But in this particular scenario, we'd be using Peer IP for our PSTN into that physical box and then over to the Microsoft Teams phone system. Nothing really more complex on that. Where we see the vast majority of our customers facing is towards Operator Connect. And that's because that's where Microsoft's applying its development resources as well as marketing resources, and truly is a better experience for the customers. The way that we connect to Microsoft Teams with Operator Connect is via the Microsoft Azure peering service. This gives us the ability to have multiple redundant connections into each region of Microsoft to be able to ensure that we're supplying your tenant with the PSTN services that you need in both ideal and subpar conditions. So if there's an issue on Microsoft's side or even within our own infrastructure, we apply the belt and suspenders methodology, making sure that there are multiple routes in and out of each one of those regions. All of the calls that will traverse the Microsoft, that will traverse any of it, that will go back and forth between people, will have TLS or SRTP encryption applied. That is native, and there's no additional steps that need to be taken for that. Just a quick hit here to show you how closely aligned we are. Now, I've got other maps for WebEx, Zoom, or others, even contact center solutions to show where our data centers align with them. But I think this one's important because Microsoft is one of the largest companies that's out there in the entire world. And we've strategically aligned with them across the globe in multiple points and regions to ensure that our services can help power theirs. So those dark blue boxes will be the Microsoft data centers that you see, and the light blue ones are the Pure IP ones. Okay, last bit before we get into some of the cooler features within Microsoft Teams and beyond just being able to pick up the phone and dial someone. Dedicated and shared calling. Not all operators love shared calling. We personally do, and we enable shared calling within our services for Microsoft Teams. And it's nothing fancier than the ability to use less DIDs than you have users. So not a dedicated phone number for every single user that's going to be placing calls. It could be ideal in finance, healthcare, or retail, where you want, or even sales, where you want to normalize that outbound number so that people recognize it and pick up that phone call. You also don't necessarily have, maybe you have a transient staff who's not necessarily receiving knowledge worker based phone calls to a direct DID. This is a great way to gain some financial efficiencies. And it does also work with all emergency services, E911, both static and dynamic. So all of that to say, how do we get started using some of the cool stuff within Microsoft Teams? So there's a couple parts and pieces that we're going to have. Dan, do you have a question?
Kind of, but more so, what I was going to just, if you don't mind me interrupting, I was just going to say to everyone that is here, as we're going through this, just another reminder, there is a Q&A session at the end, but please feel free to put any questions you have now and currently into the chat, and we'll respond to those throughout the webinar and afterwards. And if we don't get to them, we'll respond via an email afterwards as well. And I just did want to say one thing, Mike Hoggins, is that through my journey with Teams, there have been a lot of things that weren't available originally, like the 911, like the the E911 compliance, like multi-level auto attendants or analog integrations. But this, what you guys have with the direct routing and Operator Connect here, that actually gives all of the features that Teams didn't have and sometimes still doesn't have. That's my assessment, how it's been so far. Is that pretty accurate still?
And that's the long and short of it. We've spun up specific solutions to help band-aid or stopgap those, because there's so much value in Teams right now that people can extract. They want to use it, even if it doesn't fit every scenario perfectly. As they continue to increase their capabilities and bring in more hardware, I imagine we'll depreciate our point solutions on those. But it really does show how we're on the forefront of that, trying to make sure that we can fit all of the different variables that the client has, whether they're standard or perhaps a little bit unique, into the Teams phone system.
Thank you. Okay.
Yeah. So kind of diving into Microsoft Teams and some of the other stuff that we can do within the world. The first piece that you have to enable the Microsoft Teams phone system is one of a couple different licenses. You'll need an E5 license, which already has that portion included, or you'll need one of the E or FX licenses. That could be an E1, an F1, E3, F3, etc., with the Teams phone system enabled, or Teams phone system license on it as well. From there, we do have some additional options for extra functionality. Some of this stuff you couldn't rip away from me now that I've used it, and other pieces, it's so interesting. We did pilots within our own organization, and I'll dive into a little bit of that here in just a second, but depending upon the job function, some people will absolutely demand they have access to these functions, and once they see them or taste them, they'll never give them up. And others who it really just doesn't change their world all that much. And I want to give you some insight into that. So once we've got Teams up and running, we are connected to the PSTN, we have an option for Microsoft Teams Premium. Now, people might ask, okay, what exactly am I getting with the Teams Premium? I've spelled it out for you on the left-hand side there. There's some customization, there's some templates, there's some other cool stuff. But one of the things that we're actually using right now, which are the advanced webinars with registration, custom communication, and the green room that we just came out of. So anyone who wants to put on a professional webinar can do this if they have that Teams Premium enabled. The other piece that I cannot express to you how much time it saved in my life and how much I'm an advocate for this. I will evangelize it for as long as I live. The intelligent recap. What this does, let me describe it first. It listens to the meeting, it transcribes the meeting, and then it uses Microsoft's AI, which is in partnership with OpenAI, to create a summary or a transcript. This is a fixed set of deliverables that's given to you every single time. It'll be a summary of the meeting and all the participants, as well as a list of the action items and who they're assigned to. Now, That by itself allows me to stop taking as many notes when I'm talking with anyone and having an engineering discussion, and be present in that conversation, knowing that something else is there recording all the minutia and details for me while I'm actively engaging in that conversation. The other thing that it does is if I haven't talked to someone in a while, I can quickly take a look at the last meeting that we ran, any of the outstanding action items that I might have, and then be able to sound prepared, on point, and sharp when we revisit that topic again. So that's Teams Premium. And again, those are all fixed deliverables. You can't interrogate it. It is just simply an output from the system. Now, if we look at Microsoft Copilot, we take all of those same things within the Teams Premium, but we extend that a little bit. So by that, I mean, instead of the fixed deliverable, we're now able to interrogate the meeting. We're able to ask questions about sentiment, ideas, things that were done. And one of my favorite ones that I use all the time is, give me a list of the topics with positives and negatives or pros and cons in a table format for everything we talked about in this meeting. It quickly organizes all of my to-do items and gives me a summary of basically how I can quickly start making decisions on very complex topics. So those are some of the ways that I use Microsoft Teams Premium, as well as Copilot for Microsoft 365. But I want to show you what people want. And I think it's very similar to what organizations are looking for now. So we did some studies, and we've worked on this very diligently to understand the AI space on both from an organizational level as well as from a worker level, because those can be oftentimes conflicting positions. On the right-hand side, you'll see what organizations would like AI to deliver, and that's employee productivity. As you'll note, one of the last things that's on that list is reducing headcount. That was not always the case and does not always apply for specific verticals, but probably one of the most fear-invoking or anxiety-driving things that we've gone throughout our journey with AI has been that reduction in headcount. And as we can see, people are more excited about extracting additional productivity and results from our existing base of employees than they ever would be about reducing headcount for efficiencies. Now, on the left-hand side, I have what all of the knowledge workers say they would love to do. And it's, I want to do good work and I want to do it fast. I want to be able to skill up on something and understand how to do something quickly. My kingdom for a search is oftentimes what we hear, right? If you've ever tried to use the search bar in Outlook, you've probably been frustrated before. Using Copilot and being able to give it context and talk to it in full sentences like a normal human interaction, this gives us the ability to extract some of that we've never been able to do in the past. So this is the theoretical. This is what the organizations want and what people want. And Dan, I want you to chime in too.
I was just going to simply interject for just 1 second to let everyone know that no, this is not Skynet. This is not the Terminators coming over to take over, at least not yet. We're a while away from all of that. But what I have seen some of my personal customers and clients work this with is the interactive search has been great. The transcriptions and the summarizations of these meetings has been a very useful tool for a decent amount of people. So I just wanted to reiterate that fact that Michael was talking about and reassure you that we're not going to be taken over by the T800. That was it.
Exactly. And legitimately, there's an entire conversation to be had around the security infrastructure, Microsoft Graph, and how they secure your data and make sure that only the parts that are allowed per user are accessible. Happy to have that conversation with anyone who wants to after. But yes, no Skynet, not yet. So early findings, this is really cool. This is where we put Copilot in the hands of users. Both Microsoft did this and we did this within our own company, and we found very similar results. Almost 100% of people were going to be disappointed if they no longer had access to Copilot. I find that as an interesting statistic because those are the hard ones. That difference between 83% of not wanting to go back working without Copilot to that 96%, that's your question, Mark. Do I pay for these licenses? Do I enable the whole company or not? But even those who aren't extracting crazy amounts of value from it would still be disappointed because of the quality of life improvements that it provides, such as those search functions, such as that note taking. Where we really see the rubber hit the road, though, that is in sales, IT, engineering, and marketing. I would not work at a company that does not have access to AI tools anymore for one reason and one reason only. It helps me get over the blank page syndrome, which is where you know you've got a task to do. You have to start it. It's quite daunting, and you're staring at that blank page. You have no idea how to begin formulating your thoughts. I can throw down my brainstorming ideas, have Copilot organize it, and I've got a 70% done document that I can then start iterating from and making improvements to deliver my direct message. The amount of time that has saved me, I cannot evangelize enough how wonderful that is. So in that vein, what I'd like to do is get you thinking about a couple different ways that you can utilize Copilot throughout other applications that you may have. As I mentioned at the very beginning of the presentation, we have a ton of independent software vendors and line of business applications that are meant for a specific function within your business that you may want to be able to interrogate differently. So we use all kinds of different CRMs. One of those is listed on here. The ability to go into my CRM and ask real English questions, basic human terminology. Who are my top 10 customers? What are my top 10 prospects for the closing of the month? Where do I have, if I take that and extend that into a service environment, who is the client who has the most tickets that have been opened? What's the category that's opened the most frequently within those tickets? Just imagine being able to ask all the different data that you have laying out there across your environment, real world questions that you've been dying to know the answers to. This is the infancy of this, and we're beginning to expand this ecosystem to where Copilot can access these things and provide real, actionable, useful data on other points of interest. So, along those same lines, I want to kick off a quick video here. I have to say, I have to do this in a standard stock video because Copilot deals with proprietary and confidential information. I can't show our own environment, but I do believe that this example is wonderful, and it's only about 1 minute and 40 seconds. I'm going to do this one more, and then I'd love to get you thinking about how to use Copilot in your environment.
With Copilot and Teams Phone, you can make and receive calls from your Teams app on any device and get real-time summarization and insight. Here, you're on a call with a teammate discussing the plans for an upcoming marketing event. During the call, Copilot can summarize key action items, owners, and deadlines discussed, so you don't have to worry about getting distracted by taking notes. Or you can use natural language commands, such as asking Copilot for suggestions on additional planning work streams you and your teammate should consider for the event you're planning. Copilot also works during PSTN calls. Here, you're on a PSTN call with a customer who is interested in learning more about your company's recent product announcements. With the help of Copilot, you can summarize the call, helping you stay focused and engaged during the conversation. Copilot can also curate a list of unresolved questions that came up during the call. The customer has some specific questions that require input from another subject matter expert in your organization. Using the Consult Then Transfer feature, you can chat with your colleague and confirm she's able to help the customer with their questions. Now, when you transfer the call to her, thanks to Copilot, she's able to get a summarized recap of your discussion and a list of the top questions raised by the customer, all in a matter of seconds. This saves you time you would have spent catching up and creates a better customer experience since the customer won't need to recap their questions. These scenarios are only a few examples of the many ways you can use Copilot during Teams calls, helping you spend less time on busy work and more time on connecting and collaborating with teammates, customers, and partners.
Beautiful. So with that example, you can see how using the Teams phone system natively, even within your own organization, without a contact or a call center, you can improve customer service, the speed to be able to answer questions, and just overall efficiency by using Microsoft Teams. Now, the other one that I really like here, and I apologize, I have to kick out of that 1 second, and then we'll go right back in, is I've always wanted to be able to clone myself, probably for multiple reasons, but especially in the business world. And I've never found a solution to be able to do this. This is one of those things this is one of the reasons why I say I would not work at a company that does not have Copilot. I'm one of those 47% because of this. So let's take a quick look at this and then we'll dive in.
Copilot in Outlook can help you prioritize your time and stay on top of meetings. Here, you've been invited to a meeting that conflicts with another meeting you're already attending. Clearly, you can only attend one. From the meeting invite, you can choose to RSVP with follow. Switching over to your calendar, you can see that you're now following this meeting. Once the meeting starts on Teams, the organizer will receive a notification to record the meeting because someone is following it. Now, after the meeting is done and the recording is ready, Copilot will notify you that the meeting recap is ready for you to review. You can then ask Copilot some questions about the meeting, like, summarize this meeting, or, are there any action items for me? That way you can stay on top of things as if you were present during the meeting.
So that is by far one of my favorite features within Copilot. We've got, as a matter of fact, I'm following another meeting right now, Dan, that I should be attending as we're doing this webinar. I don't have to miss out on that. And I'll be able to quickly go in and say, hey, what was the meeting about? What were my action items? Do I have any follow-ups? That by itself has just been an amazing way to gain efficiencies and time. Okay, so now we know. Oh, go right ahead.
Sorry, there was one thing I did want to tell you guys. I have a customer. It's a financial institution. I'll put it that way. That actually uses Copilot today, and I wanted to read. I polled them before this, and this is real short, Mike. And I know we have certain time constraints, but I wanted to read this off to you guys just to let you know from a horse's mouth of someone who's actively using Copilot what they said. So the M365 Copilot I've used with grammar and other suggestions and policies and procedures. So it can help with the grammar style, but they are selectively also using this for meeting summarization of projects, standing committee meetings, and getting others to use it with Excel data extracts and suggesting edits or to do writing and an entire Word document. Teams is the biggest win for applicable users with Copilot for more complete meeting minutes and time savings. Time savings is still being tracked / estimated, but it's in the hours. So there's from a horse's mouth how it can actually help people with their meetings, with grammar, with summarizations. These are all features that are given to you by Copilot. So just as a direct use case, I wanted to share that with you guys.
I love it. I think we're going to continue to get those use cases over and over. So far, I have not heard anyone from a functionality or like efficiency standpoint be like, oh, Copilot's not for me. And because we're in the infancy, I would imagine those statistics and examples will continue to grow. Great real world use. Okay, so now we know all about the Microsoft Teams phone system. We know the cool stuff that it can do. How can I get there? Okay, so this is the part of the presentation that deals very much with pure IP. I want to hit on the concepts or ideas for you, not go into a dissertation or a lengthy class on this. So as these topics hit or pique your interest, let us know, take note, and then we'll do follow-up sessions on them. But again, this entire journey starts with our signature methodology, which is discovery, design, and deploy. And because we've done this for so many different clients, we have some unfair advantages against the competition and things that can help increase and automate your journey to Teams. One of those, and one of my favorites, is our Reveal Discovery service. This is critical in the merger and acquisition world, or anywhere where either yourself or anyone that you're working with may not just fully understand how that phone system works. It was either designed and put in by someone a long time ago who's no longer with the company, or maybe it's even taken care of by a third-party integrator. All of those scenarios can make it difficult to extract the info that you need to get from one system to another. So we created an automated tool to do this. It will go through and it will take a look at the entire voice estate. Everything as far as your connectivity, the devices that are connected, the platform that you're running, how the users are in there, and the way the calls flow and route. We correlate that and normalize all of it and create a discovery report. And then if you would like, we can actually take that report and create and design a cloud migration plan to get you from point A to point B, or in that case, the on-prem PBX or cloud PBX over to Microsoft Teams. Once we have that information, we find our customers have a ton of different varying experience levels. Some want to do everything, and some just need a little bit of a kick to get started. So we created our Kickstarter program. That's where we'll go into your tenant. We'll configure Pure IP as the operator for you. We'll set up a couple sites, a couple users, go through user account or system acceptance testing, and make sure that that environment's ready to run for you. If that's good enough, then we hand over the keys and you can continue to build out your environment. If that still causes any kind of conflict, prioritization issues, or anxiety, what we can do is a full-based scope of work. It's an effort-based scope of work depending upon what we do and the services that we provide. It is not an all or nothing. We will do as much or as little as you would like, and we can help refine that to meet your exact needs. In addition to those services to get you up and running, oftentimes day two can be a different beast when you're trying to figure out how to support a brand new UC platform. We do offer a Teams managed service, which will take you through all those steps that we've covered, but will also provide you with the ability to do moves, adds, changes, and deletions, as well as any configurations within your Microsoft Teams tenant for voice policy, voice routings, or configurations in there. And then let's say that we do have an issue that is a Microsoft problem. We will be a point for incident management and escalation management for your organization, working in conjunction with the Microsoft support team.
Now, just to let you guys know, you will also have CMS Communications. You will have me as your discount double check. I will be following you along through the whole process, as well as a kind of an outsider project overseeing project manager to make sure that things go on. I'll even give you guys my personal cell phone number. Well, maybe not my personal. Don't put me on any political ad campaigns, please. But you can call me. Yeah, I answer fairly quickly within 30 minutes most of the time, and I can get you your answers as well and be an additional secondary resource for you. Just throwing that in there.
I love it. Thank you so much, Dan. And that concludes my portion. I believe, Mr. Watts, you wanted to cover some of the use case scenarios where we've had success in some of these kind of messy environments.
Yeah, absolutely, Mr. Hawkins. Appreciate it. Thank you so much, man. That's great. Hopefully, everybody. It looks like we have a couple of questions in the Q&A. I want to get to that too here in just a second. So hang with us, Mr. Hawkins, for just a second, because there's a couple, and also Dan, maybe you as well from a licensing perspective. But so what you're seeing on the screen here on the left side, I really just want to focus there. There's a major American university in the Northeast that we just helped. We had some operational challenges and some high maintenance costs. Basically, how they were structured was just like Mr. Hawkins had mentioned, where there was multiple different different phone systems and things that were spread out due to acquisition and some other things that had happened within the university. And so it just was kind of a mess. And there's multi-platform voice communication environment that needed to really consolidate and get down to a single provider across all the platforms. And that's where you insert Pure IP. We're able to come in and deliver those SIP trunks to connect those different systems together. A lot of our customers will come to us and say, yeah, I know I want to go to Teams, or I'm halfway there. Can you help me really get from point A to point Z? And that's what we're here to do. And create that 5-digit dialing support for all those platforms in between while you're doing that transition or migration to, as well as some of the analog handoff situations within this organization or this university. was a major thing for getting them to Microsoft Teams and to integrate those all together. And of course, at the result, you see that we helped them with that migration service to get them back on track from when they were first trying to move to Teams and were falling short with another provider. And just the additional future projections and that they've discussed. We've got some other things that are going on with that university as well. That of course we're now a trusted partner within their organization, and would love to be the same for you. And we really appreciate your time today. Let's just do some questions real quick, Dan. Can we just jump into that before?
Yeah, absolutely, that's fine. And I'll tell you what. Why don't I just one thing before we get into those questions? I'm sorry, Mike, if that's right.
Yeah.
Just to let everyone know, thank everyone, number one, for sticking through it. We're going to get to these questions here in just 1 second. I want to let you guys know how to get started and what the process is. So you can contact me when I sent an email out earlier today. You can respond back to that to set up the discovery process, or you can contact cloud@cmsc.com and say voice enabling teams in the subject line. And what we're going to do, the Mikes and I are going to get together and respond back to you with a meeting invite. So the process there, just to let you guys know real quick, is that we're going to do a little discovery call. We're going to understand who you are, what you have today, your infrastructure, your costs, and see how it's going to be the best fit. Which one of these platforms, Operator Connect, Direct Routing, if you need just an add-on for Copilot, we're going to, ascertain what's the best fit for you and try to engineer and set up that environment to the best benefits for your organization. Now, also, as a side note, if you guys do need if you have any renewals or expirations coming up for your licensing, your Microsoft licensing, CMS can help there as well. We can get you onto a new plan, migrate tenants, get you into a license management portfolio with one of our partners, and then we can also, add the direct routing or Operator Connect piece with voice enablement with BCM One. We're a big happy family. I hate to use the word family because everybody's like, oh, corporate family, blah blah blah. But we are. We get along pretty well, as you can see, and we work very well together. So I just want to let you guys know how you can move to the next step with us. We are going to send out a recording of this. And then the next piece here would be, let's go over some of these questions. I think the first question we had was Michael Hawkins. The slide shows E5 licensing. What about A5 licensing? I assume that it's going to be applicable to all as education versus enterprise, but is that true?
It is true. We typically focus on that enterprise. The only one that you're going to have a caveat on, Dan, would be any kind of DoD or government GCC high type environments, which we do support and have the ability to connect to. But they're a little more complex, as you can imagine. They've got some extra requirements.
Okay. Mike Watts, do you want to take the next question?
The next question is, we use 3CX and FlowRoute. How would we integrate Teams to work with a 3CX phone system? We only have a few users that are using Teams. Hawkins, how would we connect and interconnect those trunks? Trunk it together.
So this is kind of a cool one because it contradicts everything that I said throughout the entire presentation about Operator Connect, right? That's what every engineer wants that question to be. No, it really is a great question. So this is one of those scenarios where we would use direct routing. We could actually tie the Teams users together with the C3X phone system via our SBCs, pass those off, the call control, everything would remain on the C3X. It just would enable Teams as an additional endpoint on C3X. So that's a great use case scenario for someone who maybe has business processes embedded into their phone system, a culture or a user base who maybe isn't ready for that UC switch yet, but you have users who are, and you need to enable them. This is that great hybrid environment.
Perfect. Mike Hawkins, is it possible to add in dial-in numbers to Teams meetings without adding phone licenses for all the users? That sounds like a cost-saving loophole that we're trying to discover, but what does that look like?
Yeah, there are ways. Microsoft's got its audio conferencing add-on specific. So if you need a dial-in number for just like a particular user, yes, I'd like to better understand the scenario because conferencing usually is more of a rounding error by the time we're done with the complete design. So we've got enough paths, and that is most of the time included in the licensing. But I'd love to hear the specific scenario. There's ways around it.
Mike Watts, you want to take the next one?
Yeah, and then the other one was, does Operator Connect model, does that model, Mr. Hawkins, work with on-prem VoIP solution? So connecting and interconnecting Operator Connect with an on-prem phone system.
Yes, but only because it's somewhat of a unique advantage for pure IP. Because we own and operate all of our SBCs across the globe, it gives us the ability to connect disparate systems, such as an on-prem phone system, which would need to be supplied with a traditional SIP trunk, and Operator Connect, which lives in that Microsoft Azure peering service and connects via TLS and SRTP. We can take and power both of those. And then because we're that traffic cop, remember, as soon as that phone call goes in, it's going to ask that SBC, do I go left or do I go right? Whether that's that on-prem system or the Teams phone system. And even if we need to normalize or create the ability to do short code dialing, we'll say like 4 or 5 extension dialing versus a full 10-digit between the systems. Again, these are just SBCs. These are logical rules that we can write. If it's a contiguous block of numbers, we can translate 10-digit numbers into 4-digit numbers across those disparate systems. So that's a really long way of saying yes.
That's right. Well, we've got one last question that we'll take, and then any more we'll respond via email afterwards. Michael Hawkins, how do you mitigate service disruption when porting numbers from operator to operator while migrating to Teams at the same time? That's a good question.
That's a good question.
Right? Yeah.
Yeah, and we do it on a global scale, which further complicates that. I think if you're within the domestic US, there's a fairly nice ecosystem for porting. As you start breaching out beyond that, you need some experts to help you guide you along the way. So the first piece that we do is we have regionalized porting support so that our service delivery people and porting engineers are familiar with each one of those carriers, the contacts within the region, and the normal operating procedures. That by itself gives us a lot of lift right off the bat. The second piece that we're going to do is understand exactly what we're trying to accomplish. That may require us setting up some test DIDs for the ported DIDs to land on. We'll also do pre-port configuration or authorization checks to make sure that the address numbers, the PIN numbers, all those things are in there and working. And we have a verified acceptance of that port before the port date so that we have the ability to correct anything should we need to. Well, again, it's another one of those belt and suspenders type scenarios where it's no one magic bullet, but a series of best practices, procedures, and processes that we've implemented through 20 plus years of experience in the space that really give us better rates on the porting and less disruption. Happy to have a more in-depth conversation on that and go into the intricacies.
So, Chris, we can help you do that. And we can, we'd like to talk with you more about it, though, as well. There is one last question. I always, and this is kind of from me, but someone asked the question as well. I always had assumed that you had to have a Microsoft certified phone to do anything with Microsoft and, for a desk phone. However, Mike here, just another Mike, sorry, a different Mike, asked, can I make Teams outside phone calls push to my 3CX? And to me, that's ringing bells of like, hey, can you integrate your desk phone, your 3CX phones into Teams and make outside phone calls? Does it have to be a Microsoft certified phone? That's part my question, part his.
Sure. So 2 different things. I think we're very similar to the direct routing scenario where we could enable the Teams endpoints on the C3X. But also, I think it bears mentioning, you're right. When Teams first came out, the only things that worked on it were Teams native devices. And if you wanted any kind of an experience, well, if you just wanted it to work, you were buying Teams devices. Now, fast forward 2.5 years, Microsoft SIP Gateway has really made strides. They're working with a bunch of different OEMs to bring in the most popular models. And that includes not only those desks on your phone, Dan, but also paging systems now, ATAs, being able to integrate those into the environment, see them in that single pane of glass. It's not the end of the world that you can't right now, but that's the panacea that we're all trying to achieve. And so they continue to make improvements on that.
Okay.
Last piece, just for note, if anyone's considering reusing their devices, I highly encourage you to set up either via Peer IP or Dan or whatever, a proof of concept so that you can test out the two different experiences. A native Teams phone offers a very different experience than a Polycom phone connected to Microsoft Teams. Just want to throw that out there.
Yeah. Well, guys, I really appreciate you both being here today, going over BCM One and how we can voice enable Teams as a whole. This, in my opinion, has been great, and it's also very informational for my own sake. And I work with you guys. I know some of this, but I learned some new things even today. So that was great. And for everyone else that's out there, cloud@cmsc.com, or respond to my email or hit me on LinkedIn, hit any of us on LinkedIn and just say, I was at the CMS webinar about voice enabling Teams. I hope you all know that we, just given today and answering these questions, that we are wanting and willing to sit down with you, discover and uncover what you've got in your current systems today, and we can find a solution. We can engineer a solution, and we can answer your questions to, migrate you into a Teams voice enablement platform with BCM One. They're the top provider out there, and they are our primary provider, our only provider, because we just said everyone else, nope. BCM One has got it made, and that's why we were excited to have this webinar. So again, Mike, thank you very much for being here today, and thank you to all of our attendees for joining. We'll be sending out an email with a recap and a recording of this video, and I'll be following up with you shortly. But please feel free to jump on a call with us. We'll set up a discovery call and get things moving forward for you as soon as you need it, or as far away as you need it. We're here for you. So.
Thank you so much for having us. Appreciate it, Dan.
Yeah, thanks, Dan. It was fun. I appreciate it.